So I left New York, I left LA, I left, I called my agents, I quit acting. I said, don't call me, don't submit me for anything. I don't want you to waste your time. I'll get back to you if anything changes, but for now I'm off. I'm not available.
Nothing you do matters unless what you do matters. I'm Amadon DellErba, and this is Get Real or Die Trying. All right, Healing Tribe. Welcome to Get Real or Die Trying. Super stoked to be here outside of Austin, Texas, sitting down with Adrian Grenier.
Grenier,
something like that.
Yeah, just do it while you twirl your mustache.
That's
and
right.
Then,
My French friend, French descent. And I've just been looking forward to actually talking to you for quite some time.
Yeah, man.
First met Adrian about 8 years ago in Arizona. He came down to our eco village and our farm, and I'm impressed. He told me back then that he wanted to get out of New York and get out of the Hollywood scene and buy some land somewhere and start a farm and generate a community. And you did it, man, or you're starting to do it. I mean, you got the land. That's the first step. And you got a farm going, and a lot of people have dreams and aspirations, and just talk about it and don't do it. So it's really cool to be here and see that you've started.
Well, I don't know who's interviewing who, but I have so many questions to ask you.
Yeah, it's cool. We'll go both ways.
Because there's please, how long did it take you? What did you do for this? And how did you kick people out when they became a nuisance? All those questions that I have, obviously I can call you on the side as well.
I think it will naturally go there for sure, man. But I guess I wanted to start kind of with the obvious. I know you've been asked this before, so it might be old hat for you to digest it. But for my listeners who may not know the story, I think it's kind of a compelling and cool concept for a Hollywood star, so to speak, which you were. For those of you who don't know, I think he's most known for his role as Vince in Entourage, which was a pretty big hit on HBO for a while in 2000s, mid 2000s, if I'm correct. And so you were in that scene and filming in New York. And I remember 8 years ago you mentioning that, you wanted a different lifestyle and you really were interested. At the time, I actually met you at a conference, and I know you've been a long time environmentalist and concerned about the environment and doing different things. And so your evolution of leaving the big city and leaving the rat race of Hollywood, so to speak, and putting your money where your mouth was and getting on the land and connecting with the earth and animals and planting. And of course now too, you're married to a beautiful woman and children. So you've come a long way, man, and you're doing it, which is super cool.
You think my wife is beautiful?
I do.
Good. Me too.
I haven't met her in person yet, but I've seen a few photos. I would say she's beautiful. She's a beautiful woman. Yeah.
Inside and out.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. I always joke with my wife. She's got the 10-10 life. Yeah. 10 on the inside, 10 on the outside.
Yeah.
You gotta find the good balance. Usually, if they're a 10 on the outside, they're a little crazy on the inside. But you want to get the inside. What's important?
Yeah.
Especially if you're looking for wife material. And
they have the hot, crazy matrix.
That's right,
but
the mix.
there's got to be a matrix for good mother, and I married, honestly, my wife is gorgeous. She's beautiful. She's lovely. She's smart. She's all those good things. But I married her because she is a great mother. And I knew she would be.
Yeah, exactly.
And I married her for my children's benefit.
I love that. That's very smart.
And every day I'm just patting myself on the back, shining my nails for having made that choice because I see how it benefits them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about that a little bit because I think, I was listening to a podcast you were on with Jordan Peterson, and you told the story a little bit, and your wife was a catalyst, I think, for your own personal growth and becoming the man you are today and the man you want to become. And let's talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, and I would say that's I think that's what women do so well is call us to a better account. And if you're listening, if you're paying attention, if you're willing to get over your ego or your sense of righteousness to heed the call. And I always say, my wife is the navigator. She knows where we need to go, and she knows when we're off track.
Yeah.
and and I'm driving the ship, you know, but if I'm not paying attention to, you know, her intuition and what she's needing of me, you know, it's a relationship, a dynamic between her deep oracle of wisdom and my sort of myopic, like, we got to get stuff done. And there was a time we've known each other for almost 11 years, but we've been reconnected, let's call it, for 6 years and married for 2+ years. So in our previous incarnation, because we were separated for 2 years in between that, our previous incarnation, my idea of leadership was just, I know better, so I'm just going to do everything and you just follow along. And I didn't realize that I was missing the whole most important part, which was to be in service to my woman, my partner, and in service of her, it just blossoms in so many different ways. So now that I've reoriented my life to be, um, you know, basically, all my goal in life is to serve my wife and my children, and everything else sort of fell into place.
That's cool, man. That's beautiful. As it really should be, you know. I think it takes men and women, vice versa, you know, some time in their life to get to that point, to get those priorities straight, you know, to figure out what they want, what they need. Actually, is what's the most important thing. There's a lot of confusion, I think, we human beings can have the difference between want and need. And
Mm.
once we realize what we need, then we can pursue it, you know, because what we want always is not always actually the best thing, you know, for ourselves,
Yeah.
for those around us, especially when we become fathers. You know, we can't always get what we want. What we want really doesn't matter anymore.
Mm.
It's what our family needs. It's what we need to be the best man we can be for the people around us.
Yeah, I guess when I'm feeling into that, what you're saying, I what I've grown to understand, or what I've grown to feel, is that there are layers of want, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes the loudest desires are the most primal, carnal, immediate needs.
Mm.
Like, oh, I'm hungry. I gotta, you know, where's food? Gotta reach for food. And then there are deeper layers that may not be as acute in the moment, but if you're not tapped into those, and you're not checking in with yourself, and if you're not regularly, um, you know, just listening to those more subtle cues, you might get distracted by those more, sort of aggressive wants or needs.
For sure. So, what was it for you? Were you able to identify in your life, or can you now, in retrospect, you know, what was kind of the breaking point, if there was one, when you were like in Hollywood, you know, say Entourage ended, or you were in that scene still, and you know that environment. Was there a situation or an aha moment where you're like, this is not really the life I want, or was it more of a evolution kind of growing in you that revealed itself over time?
I mean, I guess I always, on some level, you know, felt like there was a gnawing need, that like something I needed to change. That, like, this is going to catch up with me eventually. This lifestyle can't be this good all the time, right?
Yeah,
Like, there's got to be a catch.
yeah,
And something about the Hollywood lifestyle and the industry at large and the machine, which is the attention and the audiences and the fame and the fortune and all the stuff that goes with it. There's something about the way it's designed that keeps you, you know, watching the bouncing ball. Like, you're just sort of, I was making decisions going from one incredible event or experience or party or indulgence to the next, or chasing the next big paycheck or the next fancy film or opportunity that was presented to me. So I wasn't really even making choices. I wasn't deciding. I was just being led along, seduced by the next, you know, incredible, opportunity. And it wasn't until I decided to get off that hamster wheel and start to decide what my soul wanted, Like, well, what does Adrian want? Have I even, because it would get to the point where it's like, oh, they're going to give you stupid amounts of money to go to this party and show up for 20 minutes, and they're going to shower you with praise and adoration. Like, well, how could I say no to that? Of course I'm going to do that. So it's just a knee-jerk, surrender to the next thing. And I'm like, wait a minute, do I really want to do that? Like, is there anything else I could be doing instead with my time? We do have finite time on this planet, so what is Adrian's soul? Well, why did you come to this planet? Like, what is your bigger mission? I never asked any of those questions. I never had anyone teach me or show me, and I never figured it out myself until my aha moment that, oh, there's somebody, there's a you inside that has been checked out, numbed, repressed, whatever you want to call it, or hasn't come online or whatever, that has a mission, has something to do. And what happens if you listen to that the soul, your dharma, whatever it is?
Yeah.
And so that's what I did.
That's really cool.
Finally, I got to.
Yeah.
Luckily.
What a pleasure.
Because I consider myself barely having made it out.
Yeah. A lot of people don't make it out.
No.
They just stay stuck.
Yeah.
And they don't even, that's really cool. Yeah, I feel like, we all have a destiny purpose, and we all have talents and abilities and a God-given purpose, if you believe that, or whatever you want to believe. But there's something that we're meant to do in our lives and activate. And a lot of people stay trapped, whether it's because of fear of something different or new, or comfort. A lot of people stay comfortable. It's scary to do something new, or you had an established life and career and alter ego, and to break out of that completely and to do something completely different and become somebody else, it does take a willingness to go through quite an uncomfortable transition period.
Yeah, it's a rebirth. It's labor.
Yeah,
it's a labor.
What was the hardest thing for you?
Oh, detaching.
Losing friends or people you're associated with.
Yeah, letting go of the accolades. Like I basically plotted out my life intentionally. I had planned out my days with dopamine hits. It's like everything was the next fun experience or event or party or brunch. Eating, gluttony. There's all the foods you could want. Where am I at lunch or brunch? I'd be brunching, and I'd be thinking, where am I going to have dinner? And then who's going to come to the after party? And it was just. So to like detox from that, to go cold turkey, so to speak, and then sex and pleasure and masturbation and porn and all that stuff, which was another layer. Even after the parties, you go home and you have a nightcap or something, and then maybe you like masturbate and you get a little kick, a little dopamine before you pass out, and then
do it all again the next day. Chasing those highs.
And it wasn't even like I wasn't like a heroin junkie. It was like not overt addiction. It was just a low grade addictive lifestyle that was, to the outside observer, what everybody wanted.
Yeah.
Right? And I had achieved it.
Yeah.
And everyone was giving me permission to go more and to do more of it, because that's what sells, or that's what, people were wanting. They wanted me to embody that character. Yeah. Me in particular, right? I mean, you see actors who play all sorts of characters and they still find themselves, sinking into the lifestyle. But with my character and Vincent Chase, it was people, when they'd see me, they go, we love the show. We love your character. Come do a shot with me. They saw me as one of the guys. They saw me as the character. They wanted me to be Vince. And I was happy to accommodate, because free shots, and also you get the attention and the approval for having done that. And so to let go of that lifestyle to go cold turkey was the hardest. And because then what? Then it wasn't even the dopamine hits. It was the oncoming loneliness and isolation that I had to get comfortable with, because I couldn't call the friends, couldn't call that girl on rotation, couldn't, none of that was I mean, it was available to me, but I had to choose something else. And until I decided what I was going to choose, I had to just, separate myself from all of it. So I
Yeah.
left New York, I left LA, I left, I called my agents, I quit acting. I said, don't call me, don't submit me for anything. I don't want you to waste your time. I'll get back to you if anything changes, but for now I'm I'm off. I'm not available.
Yeah. I remember back when, 8 years ago when we talked to you, I remember you telling me that, you didn't really even like acting, that you wanted to be, what you enjoyed more was filmmaking,
Yeah,
being
yeah.
behind the camera and making the films. I know you've made a few documentaries and shorts and things, and that was something that you were actually into. I always thought that was interesting. It's funny how life works. You have these starving people trying to act,
Yeah.
audition after audition. They just can't land a role. And for whatever reason, it kind of fell into your lap, the role of Vince, which kind of
And
skyrocketed
people
you.
hated me for that.
And you didn't even try.
They hated me
Yeah,
for
and
it.
that's the interesting thing. You just didn't. It wasn't like you didn't wake. It wasn't your long dream as a kid. I want to be a famous actor.
Yeah.
It just kind of happened. And yeah, and people hated you for that. And there's other actors too that happened to, and then they enjoyed acting and stayed in it, but they didn't have to hit the grind as much.
I love filmmaking. I
Yeah.
love the process of
Yeah.
it. But I find acting to be the least interesting aspect of it
That's
in
interesting.
many ways.
Yeah.
And also, you're asked to be disjointed or disconnected from the process of, because you're going into this character experience and you have no objectivity on yourself, whether or not you're doing well, or if, so there's like an innate insecurity to it.
Yeah.
And you have to trust the director, and mostly a lot of films suck. So you're like, is this good? Am I good?
Yeah.
Is this director a hack? All those things. And so it's an uncomfortable experience to act.
Yeah.
It's innately subjective and weird and disjointed. So I didn't, I did not prefer that experience. And a lot of people who want the fame and the glory, or to act, they want the attention. They
Yeah.
want, and when people would ask me, "Oh, I'm a young actor. How do I get into the business, or how do I achieve success like you?" I would always clarify. I was like, "Do you want to act, or do you want to be famous?" Because it's very,
different
two
things.
very different strategies to achieve those goals.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I've actually dabbled in acting myself, and I love the idea of acting. And I had an agent, was doing some auditions and stuff. And I was in New York one time and meeting with a producer, a pretty big producer. And after we had a meeting, he said, "I just find it so odd that you want to be an actor." He said, "Because you yourself and your own personality is so cool. Why would you want to pretend to be somebody else?"
Hmm.
And that really kind of struck me for a minute. And he's like, "What you really need to do is you're like a personality." He's like, "You need to have your own talk show, your own podcast, or, you're like a TV host or a talk show host, that's more your jam." And, I kind of thought that was an interesting concept though. Like, why would I want to pretend to be somebody else? Although there's kind of a fun in that art form too. It just depends. But I got to say, what he said kind of inspired me to start my podcast, and because at the time I didn't have my podcast, I was pursuing acting a little bit, among all the other things I do. So it wasn't like dedicating my life to it, but I was getting some auditions and meeting with some big casting directors in New Mexico and producers in New York through some connections I had through a friend of mine in New York, and maybe seeing if I could fast track it a little bit and get my foot in the door with something or land something. And yeah, so when he said that, it kind of changed my perspective a little bit, and it was kind of a compliment too. He's like, "You have a great personality. You have a great,
Well, there's
so
great character actors that
yeah,
you won't recognize them from film to film, and then
yeah,
there are the stars, which they don't do much outside of their
they
personality.
just adapt their personality. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So yeah, anyways, it's cool that you got out, man. It's really cool that we're sitting here and on your farm in Texas. And
Well, and by the way, now I get to choose.
yeah,
Choice is a big thing for me.
Yeah.
And I say no a lot because it doesn't align with my soul's mission.
yeah,
I don't care how much they're going to pay me now. If it's going to take me away from my kids, no, I'm not
yeah,
going to do it.
yeah. So you still have an agent that will throw you stuff here and there, and
God bless him. Yeah.
even though you tell him
Yeah.
not to, he's
Well,
yeah, you never know. He's like, oh, he might be interested in this, so he.
I don't know at what point they're gonna, tell me to, find someone else. But for now, they're happy to deal with my shenanigans.
Yeah.
And I hope I can make them some money. Yeah.
Yep. So, what made you choose Texas at the time? Like when you were looking to relocate out of New York, did you know it was going to be Texas, or you were just open to
Well,
wherever?
I had fallen in love with Austin
Yeah.
many years ago. I had business here, and I would come every year for South by. I used to run an artist-run label, so we would come and we'd do showcases, and I managed bands, and we'd do, and I had a band, so I was here all the time for music, and then other business that I had, and um, so I was very familiar with the downbeat, low key, no pretense lifestyle.
Hmm.
I love that. You'd have billionaires and low lifes, jeans and a t-shirt at the same bar,
Yeah.
and it was a small big town, right? And I mean it's different now,
Yeah.
since COVID. But so I had a little, I had bought a little bungalow here, and so when I was leaving sort of the lifestyle, leaving New York, LA, all my gallivanting around the world, I had a little place that I could go and retreat to and figure my shit out. So I was here, and then when my wife and my Jordan, who's my wife, were talking at the time, I told her that I had a revelation and that I wanted to do land stewardship, but not from a pretentious, arrogant, soapboxy conservationalist kind of way, but I want to like actually learn how to take care of the land and be in relationship to nature and learn skills that require sacrifice of me and presence from me. Um, and she said, "Where do you want to do that?" I said, "Well, I'm in Austin." She goes, "Oh, that's funny because I just got into acupuncture school
Mm.
in Austin."
Mm.
And I'm like, "All right, well,
Wow.
it's a perfect opportunity for us to get to know each other again." And that's what happened. We started dating again and ended up connecting more deeply. And then when I told her I wanted to get land, we were both here. So, and you're gonna go see Jesse Elder, right?
Yeah.
So Jesse is one of the reasons why I'm here in particular. So Jesse had bought some land, and I was going to go check out what he, see what go look at the land, hang out with him or whatever. And on my way to visit him, I said, "Well, let me see what's out there." And so I went and I looked at a couple places. This was the very first place I saw.
Oh wow.
And I walked onto this land, and I felt like I was walking into my own home. It was like I was arriving back home.
Mm.
And I was like, wow, like that's a strange feeling. I don't know where that was coming from because I wasn't in touch with my wife at the time. I was still deep in my work. I didn't know my ass from my elbow. I was like, the farthest away from actually making a decision to move onto land that I could have been. But I just felt that. Dismissed it, went to see Jesse. Jesse has a great piece of land. Many years later, after Jordan and I reconnected, I said, there was this one place that I saw that, I don't know, had my heart. It was like awesome, amazing, just something special about it. Let me just see. So I called up and it was still available.
Wow.
I was like, what are the chances? That's weird. It had been years.
Wow.
So my wife and I went to look at the land, and she had the same feeling. She was like, yeah. And I also knew that I didn't want to buy land and then bring Jordan onto the land that I'd gotten. I wanted it to be our decision. I wanted it to be ours.
Mm-hmm.
So there was another reason why I was delaying, making that move. But once she felt it, I felt it. It was just it became inevitable.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So what's your vision for the land? What do you want to achieve? I know it's big.
So it's evolved. And so when visited you, I think when I was thinking, oh, I'd like to do this myself, it
Yeah.
was sort of an abstract thing on some level,
Yeah.
and the intentions were off. Maybe I had this fantasy of communal living, and part of it was rooted in, you know, I don't know, some fantasy, maybe some cult fantasies or something. I don't know. Um, and so I had to detach myself from a more immature vision of what community living is. It's not all fun and games, not all the parties and like the free love or whatever fantasy I'd sort of been infected by, and so started to realize, okay, we are stewarding the land. So there are no cult leaders. There are no, charismatic figures or oligarchs that are going to come in and fund the whole thing, and everybody else just has to fall in line. And that's when I think shenanigans start to unfold. When you have a power differential that's so great that the most vulnerable, or the ones without agency within the community, start to get targeted or picked on, or um, they don't have any recourse.
Mm.
Right. So I had to get right by myself and realize that I was going to have to let go of a lot of control, that I wasn't going to be the leader. I wasn't going to be, the one calling the shots, that it was really going to be, there's got to be a way that we all come together with a shared vision, a common goal to be in service to the land. And so we're elevating the land to the role of the cult leader, I guess, so that we are all doing her bidding and working to shepherd and take care of her needs.
Mm.
And that's first and foremost. And then there's like, okay, how are you actually? What's the offering? How are you going to find the right people to come and live here? And how do you make sure they have this shared values? And it's a deeply, deeply personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just neighbors. You're going to be family,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we're in that stage of, okay, how do we create an offering, a vision that's solid enough, that's strong enough, that can hold together with all of the different personalities and people coming in, that can be clear enough that everybody aligns with, that's flexible enough that it accommodates many different personalities and people from all different walks. And then how do you make the numbers work?
Yeah.
How do you justify the financial reality of keeping a piece of land in this prime market without exploiting every single square inch for another, tract home or cookie cutter house, cutting down all the trees and pouring a bunch of pavement? How do you resist that in order for something a little more special, but yet make the numbers work?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to be by selling vegetables,
No.
right? So there's got to be another there's got to be another business model built into it.
Yeah.
That's what we're figuring out now. And we have a lot of ideas of how that's going to work. And
Yeah.
but we get to practice.
Yeah.
We get to be a laboratory for what's possible.
Yeah. Actually, before I ask you the next question, I was going to say, as you know, we have a community. We've been pretty successful over the years, been in existence for 30 years. And despite a lot of attacks and misrepresentation, and, anytime you do something outside of the mainstream and you have an alternative lifestyle, people don't understand it and they attack what they don't know.
Yeah.
But one thing we've discovered over the years to make it work is a good leadership structure. And when you're talking about community living and people feeling like they have a sense of, you didn't use this word, but I'm using it, a sense of ownership, one thing that we found works, there's a lot going on when you have a farm operation or a community operation. You're trying to build a sustainable micro system. And so the way to have people feel empowered is what we've done is we have a farm manager. He's in charge of the farming. We have an animal husbandry manager. They're in charge of the animals.
Yep.
We have the rainwater harvesting and watershed management lead. So you make leads in these different areas, and they have autonomy. They have leadership within these different areas because there's so many complexities in areas. There's not going to be one person who's in charge of everything. Although there does need to be overarching leadership to make sure things are running smoothly and that the arching vision is being achieved and there's people who have to hold that vision. I think it's different than having a dictatorship. And I took a business class once, like a 3-day course, and they were talking about the different roles of people, and often CEOs and really shouldn't be CEOs because they're more visionary. Well, the CEO is more like the visionary, not the implementator, not the executor. And so you do need to have someone who's a visionary to keep the vision, but you need someone to help execute the vision. And there's different personality types, and how to achieve all that and find all that. And everybody, when people are given a title and they understand their role, then they don't resent the person. It's not really about even them being above them, It's just a different role.
Totally.
And so that's community living, In the corporate world, there's structure and there's hierarchy, but it's based off a whole different principle. But there are some things that do work. Roles work, like people understanding their function. And I think with community living, what we found, what really works is empowering people to take ownership of what they know in their little container, whatever it may be. We have a solar energy, we have the alternative energy people, we have the building team. And so the person in animal husbandry isn't telling the building team how to build. They're just working on their, keeping the animals good.
Specialization is key to the way civilization has thrived.
And just having that sense of empowerment, to make decisions in your area is what's going to be important.
So my question, and obviously you're 30 years old, so you've had time to get to this place, but were you finding people with those skill sets, those operational skill sets, and then inviting them to live there? Or were you just inviting people to live there and then got lucky that some people were good at certain things, and then when you didn't have someone who was a project lead or didn't have that skill set, were you outsourcing that until you found someone who could live there? And
I'd say it's a combination of all those. Like we definitely looked and invited people who had the skill set. We prayed for them, we manifested them, we put the energy out there. People who came, we gave them options of what they could learn and train them to become that. There are some things we've had to outsource until we could have someone, come fully on. And there's still things we have to outsource or we don't have the expertise in-house, so to speak. It was really kind of a combination over the years of it. But a lot of it was just self-taught. People came, they didn't necessarily, maybe they left, like we've had people who've been professional accountants or lawyers who were done with that and wanted to learn how to, be farmers, and so they learn.
Who owns the property? So
it's a nonprofit. So we formed a nonprofit, and then what really is important is actually the legal, the legal structure, and what allows us to really thrive and do what we want on the land is our religious exemption. Now, we don't consider ourselves a church, but we are a federally recognized church. I was actually talking to Jesse Elder.
Are you 508c1a?
501c3. And I was talking to Jesse Elder a little bit about this when I met him in Salt Lake, and that's just paperwork, We are a spiritual community, and, we have a strong spiritual, but in the common understanding of church, we don't consider ourselves a church. We're not churchy like that. But that's given us a lot because religious land use, you can use the land. And of course, there's agricultural exemption and agricultural land use, but religious land use is a whole step above ag use. You can do pretty much whatever you want, and I want to say it like that, but it's a powerful exemption, and so that's really helped us. But the nonprofit organization, which is the parent organization of the community, like most nonprofits, there's a board of directors, and there's a structure around it, and there is a leadership team. My parents founded it, so they were the founders, the co-founders, and the leaders, but they were always very spiritually mature and aware to not be like the oligarchy, not be the dictators, to empower people to rise to the occasion. Like, this is your area. We don't know this. You come and help us. Like, here's our vision. We hold the vision. We need help implementing it, Yeah. And I think that's important. And there's no shame. Like for you, if this is your, your vision, there's no shame in assuming that role and being a leader, so to speak, in that sense, not a dictator, not that, but I think people are attracted to having a vision and a course and a path, so to speak. So like you're in the jungle, you're cutting the path right now, and the
Mm-hmm.
path's got to be cut. But once the path's cut, people are going to want to walk on that path. It's nice to walk on a nice
Yeah.
path and not have to hack your way through the jungle,
50 cents.
And so, yeah, if you see yourself as a path cutter, you're cutting the path, and that's good. That's okay. And you can be recognized for cutting that path, and then inviting people to come in and then like, oh, we want to expand off this main path, and make an artery over here. Can you help me? And can you cut that path and do this?
Oh, yeah.
And see it like that. And it's not about control, and it's not about domination. It's just about
Yeah, well,
direction,
I'd love to show you our business model,
Yeah.
and I think you'll get a kick out of it.
Yeah, and tell me about the name. How do you say it? Kintsugi?
Kintsugi is the Japanese.
Repairing the
Yeah, it's a Japanese
porcelain.
practice of mending broken pottery
it's
with
beautiful.
gold. So
Yeah.
it's a story of renewal, rebirth, reunification, and it's really a story of my wife and my coming back together.
I love that.
About us returning to the land and getting in right relationship with where we came from and our home, and land practices, healing our way of growing food from conventional, more destructive practices.
Yeah.
Bringing community back together, healing that's the hardest fucking nut to crack right there.
Yeah.
Or uncrack.
That's what I was going to say.
Kintsugi.
I was going to say next, like the hardest thing isn't really the money. I was sharing with this earlier when we were working today. Isn't really the money or having a plan. It's getting people to work with each other without killing each other. And what we found is you have to have some type of spiritual foundation, because that's the only thing, having a higher power, so to speak, or having some type of belief system that transcends our human frailty, and our egos and our disagreeing. That's what keeps people together, and having that. And so whatever that is for you that you discover or build, and that can be something totally unique. You don't have to fall into any created thing, but creating that, I think, will be important for your longevity.
Well, we have our chapel, which is the first new major structure that we're going to be putting on the land.
Nice.
And that will be our heart center. That'll be a place where we deliberate, where we come together, where we
super cool
work through, the interpersonal conflicts and such. So how do you exit people? Like, I'm sure you've had to sit some people down and be like, hey, you're not working here, you got to go. What's that like?
Yeah, we just do just that. Just sit them down and tell them. It's happened over the years several times. It doesn't have to happen a lot. As we've grown and matured and learned and made mistakes ourselves as an organization, we've become more discerning of not letting those people in to begin with.
Right.
But you always get the charlatans, you always get the people who...
He was such a nice guy.
You get these people, who they look so good on paper. And usually they're very talented and skilled and smart and charismatic.
Sure,
and they're the ones who cause the most problems. But no, we've had to do it. And I think making it clear in the beginning that, you have the authority to do that, so to speak. No one likes that word authority, but just is what it is, the authority that if it's not working out and you're, we're creating an organism here. It's an ecosystem. Mm-hmm. If you're a cancerous cell in that, you're making the whole system sick. You got to go, And so, we've had to ask people to leave. It hasn't happened as much as, I thought it would over the years, but it has happened. And it's not easy, but it just is what it is. We've never had to call the authorities. There's never been violence, so to speak, or people refusing to leave. But
is there a model? Is it like a cooperative, a condo? Like, do people own their homes?
The organization owns the land, owns all of the homes. It's all in. So when people come, they have 6 months to live, or longer if they need, which is called an initiate period. So they're living on the land, they're learning about our practices, our people, meeting us, what we do, our vision, and deciding if it's something they want to commit to. We're looking for a lifelong commitment, because to build what we're doing and to achieve what we've achieved, you have to have that commitment level. And so they have that 6 month or longer period to decide, okay, I want to be all in. After that 6 months is up, they're all in. So they take a vow and a commitment to be all in. And they give all of their finances and things, not personal things, their jewelry and clothes, but their assets go all into the common pool. And then we provide everything for them. Their housing, their food, their medical, their dental. They get a stipend. There's no set amount, you know, it's just a stipend. Like, we live the consciousness of our community. No one's requesting $500 for a Gucci handbag, you know. It's, you know, the stipend is, oh, I want to go out to eat, or I got some friends in town, or we want to go, you know, I need to go shopping and buy some clothes. And so the money is distributed accordingly to people and families and based upon request. There's no like everybody gets an allowance every week. It doesn't work like that. It's just based upon the needs. So people are living in what would be $1 million homes that we built ourselves if they had to buy it or purchase it. And they're living in a beautiful environment, beautiful land, and and the trade-off, so to speak, because that's how, you know, Western culture thinks. What's the trade-off? Is that they simply give of themselves and their time, you know, to the land. And so it's a family. Like, we call ourselves a cosmic family. We're all a family. So just as, you know, a family builds and works the land, and you milk the goats together and you do it because it's your land and your family, that's the consciousness. There's no one being paid to do things. Now, we do have to pay people to come in and do stuff because we don't have every talent and ability.
Right.
You know, so we actually employ quite a few people because we've gotten so big, we don't have enough people to do everything. So we employ probably 20 farm workers. And
so when people devote their finances, that'll dwindle after time. So how does the organization continue to generate?
So we've created our own businesses. So I was saying, the early 90s, the community started in 89. Up until 97, people were coming. They were renting their own homes. We didn't have a piece of land altogether yet. So we had a sense of community. We'd gather. We bought a piece of land in 1994. We would gather there for our ceremonies. We start working the land together. There's a 15-acre parcel in Sedona, Arizona on Oak Creek. We started clearing the rock and the bushes and putting in gardens. And people would have to pay rent on their own homes and buy their own food and all that. In 1997, we did what we called it was the Great Shift. And that's when we're going to pool all of our money together and then distribute it accordingly to the needs. And some people left. They weren't, you know, that was too much for them. It's a big change. It's very different than Western culture, but it actually is what really accelerated us. And so ever since then, in 1997, we still then had people would go out and they had jobs. The money they made from the job would go into the common pool. So that happened for a few years. We had people working in various things. We pooled all of our money. But then we started starting our own businesses in the early mid-90s. So we had a landscaping business in Sedona, just taking care of people's yards, doing installations. We had a cleaning business. We started just starting, you know, cottage industry, so to speak, and building. And, you know, some of them became quite successful. Opened an art gallery, did this and did that. And we just kept pooling the money. And, you know, over time, when we decided to move our headquarters from Sedona, Arizona to southern Arizona, about 4.5 hours south to where we are now in Tumacacori, we wanted to stay in Sedona, but it just wasn't working out. We only had 15 acres. We had homes spread out kind of in a 1-mile radius, and we just couldn't get everybody on the same land. The zoning in the county was so difficult to work with. They wouldn't let us stay on the same piece of property until we built a community center or a temple, or, you know, we had to pave the road ourselves. It was a dirt road. They kept throwing us curveball after curveball. The land was super expensive. You know, Sedona is a very high-end market. You know, we had a vision to buy the parcels around us and keep growing.
Sure.
But it was going to cost millions.
Yep.
So we bought a bigger piece of land in southern Arizona, an agricultural land that came with irrigated pastures and beautiful, rich soil. It's in a river valley that's been farmed for centuries. And we moved down south. And then we started other businesses down there. And so now we've become financially sustainable, that we don't have anybody working for anybody else. All of our income comes from our own businesses, our own programs, everything, which has been a huge blessing.
Wow.
And that's taken years and years to develop.
Yeah,
and
that's a feat.
It's a feat. And
you said, you know, I said, oh, you know, I got to make ends meet selling vegetables.
Yeah.
And you laughed.
Because I know it doesn't work.
Right. So what do you grow food?
We do.
So that's just almost, that's just for life, for living.
It's for life. It's for the philosophy of living off the land. We do sell vegetables. It's by no means the main moneymaker.
Right.
We sell to a wholesaler, we're really blessed to have a great guy who buys
and you also
bulk and then redistributes. But
really, how much money do you need when you have your own food, when you have your own water, when you have...
Yeah, the money that we need is for expansion. It's for building, really. You know, that's the money we need, because the money that we're trying to make is to expand and to buy building materials and to hire contractors and just to keep building more. Mm-hmm. And so those are most of the costs.
How many homes?
On the property now, we have, boy, over 15 homes, and then
15.
a bunch of smaller dwellings too, like 15 bigger homes, I'd say. And then we have what we call auxiliary smaller units that are attached to a bigger home. So we probably have like 30, I'd say 30
So like studio
dwellings.
apartment type.
Yeah, they're kind of studio apartments, smaller. We have a straw bale. We have cow earth domes.
And
we have yurts.
what is the design philosophy around the homes? Do you have like a master plan?
Yeah, we started to do a master plan when we relocated. It's kind of morphed and changed over the years. So,
Right.
yeah, when you create a plan, it always tends to change a little bit. But the philosophy is definitely trying to build as sustainably and green and close to the earth as possible. At the same time, we have to balance, budget and practicality, and we do co-housing. So, most families will have their own home with their family, but if you have single people, say 4 or 5, 6 single people, they may share a home, have their own bedrooms, but they share the home. And we believe in that co-housing, setup. Now, again, we're respectful. Everybody's different. Some people may not want to live with people, and so that's where we have smaller little studio units where they live, but they're still a part of the community. They're living on the land together. The commercial kitchen where we provide an organic buffet 5 days a week, lunch and dinner, all you can eat buffet basically, which is quite amazing. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Like every time I travel, I'm again just thanking God for.
And is that open to the public?
It is. I mean, not like every single day, but we have tours. We have people who come through. We had a farm to table restaurant in the city of Tucson for about 6 years called Food for Ascension Cafe. Everything was sourced in a 150-mile radius. So anything we didn't grow ourselves, we sourced. I wouldn't say everything, 90%. We had to bring in some things that we can't grow, like quinoa and different grains. But that was very
pineapples.
Cool. Yeah, that was a very cool restaurant. It was a lot of work. We were trying to create not just a great food experience, but a great vibe experience. And we found that it was just so difficult to hire people and for people outside the community to maintain the vibe that we wanted to maintain. We wanted people to walk into that restaurant and feel our energy and feel the difference and not just go, oh, it's just a great eatery, but also like, this place is unique. This place is special. The waiter's special. The busser's special. The cooks are special. The host is special. We didn't have enough people to staff it with just our own people. That was the dream. We kind of started doing that. It wasn't really possible because we had so much going on at the main land. So we started hiring people, and it just became the turnover rate, and it just became so difficult. It was an hour away from our, so we had to commute an hour into the city, and so it just kind of burned us out.
Yeah. It's hard business.
In retrospect, I mean, it wasn't a financial failure. It was just a energy, just took too much energy. In retrospect, maybe we would have done some things a little differently, and, we could have still maintained, and I think there'll be a vision to do it again one day. But the vision now is to do it on the property. And we already have a lot of guests and people outside
much more
come
sense.
to the property,
Totally.
And have more of a destination place and come and eat on the farm and experience the meal. So yeah, the people who live on our land, I mean, they're eating well and they're living very well. We have a beautiful culture for family. We have, about 20 kids and teenagers and, families. Cool. We have our own school. We're also an accredited private school in the state of Arizona, so we can get grants and funding. We can also have people outside of our community send their kids to our school if they want to. Our next big building project is building a new private school, because right now we kind of have a smaller setup, but we have a vision to build an awesome private school. And there's a lot of demand and want for that, I think, right now in today's culture, too, because public schools are introducing a lot of concepts that people don't want their kids exposed to. And I don't want to get too political, but,
but you do.
I do,
really do.
I mean,
Come on, we'll get clicks.
I'll speak for myself. The over wokeism, that's being introduced into schools and the indoctrination of certain, concepts.
Yeah.
And telling kids they can choose their gender, 7 years old, or, it's madness. And people in the world don't want that.
Yep.
And that's just the start of it, And so there's a huge, COVID actually was kind of a launching for a massive uptick in homeschooling. And then people realize, wow, this works pretty well, and this is really cool. My kids are learning a lot better, and they're not being exposed to all this garbage. And so there's been a lot of homeschool cooperatives, what they call them, formed, where, in a neighborhood.
Yeah, our kids go to one.
Yeah, 6 or 7 families might get together and have like a little Waldorf school or something like that. And so, we've had a lot of people interested in sending our kids to our school. We don't actually have the capacity to take as many as people want to send. So we're going to be building an actual school, which is pretty cool. Another way that we've been able to get, funding for projects is through grants. We have a really good grant writer, and we work on grants.
Oh,
And so
I want a grant writer.
and the state of
Feel like-
Arizona, and I'm sure Texas has a lot of money for public programs, different things too. But there's just different things like,
Oh yeah.
even water conservation. The property we bought had 80 irrigated acres with what they call them alfalfa, 12-inch flood irrigation, where they just open these massive 12-inch pipes and they flood the whole field. Tremendous water use. Even though we have a lot of groundwater, it's still wasteful. We were doing more vegetable crops, not like Bermuda fields for like cattle, So we got a grant to convert a lot of that irrigation into drip irrigation.
Uh-huh.
And so how it works is you do have to pay for all of the parts and the installation and everything yourself, and then you get reimbursed.
Uh-huh.
And
do you have? Well, we can talk about this later. I mean, I have so many questions, but do you, like I imagine you might have a list, because I'm starting in the grant writing process.
yeah,
You might be able to point me in the right direction, like where to go first, like low hanging fruit.
yeah, we'll talk about
Especially
that.
now with the new administration, Maha and all that, and the farm bill.
Yeah,
So I'd love to talk about that.
yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
unless you want your audience to get into it, I don't know.
I mean, there's a lot of nitty gritty there, but
Nitty gritty.
yeah, I think that in general, just the community building. I think what people don't realize, the stage from taking it from the idealism, and the esoteric romantic idea of a community to reality is a lot hardier and messier than people think. And you're probably aware of that. And again, the hardest thing is finding the right people and trusting the right people and building a rapport and getting to know people and showing respect and getting egos out of the way. But again, having leadership, because you got to have leadership. There's got to be some way that decisions are made and a course is set and an action plan can be followed. And so I think you have to look for mature individuals, people who are willing to put their ego aside and work for the common good, And you got to have the spiritual aspect too, because spiritual principles and consciousness is what allows someone to separate themselves from their ego. It's what allows someone to make decisions from their higher self and not their lower self. It is the consciousness that dictates the physical reality, and most people think, oh, the physical reality is what dictates everything I do. But really, it starts in your mind and your conscience and your heart and your motive, and like you mentioned, letting the earth dictate and listening to the land, listening to the earth. And that actually takes a level of humility, because men, human beings, Homo sapiens, not just men, Homo sapiens, want to dominate the earth. That's what we do. We think we can control nature. We're like cloud seeding. We're doing all these crazy things, controlling nature, which is absurd, and not living with nature. And so that's like the first step of like living off the land is kind of a mindset of submission to the uncontrollable.
Well, I mean, I like to look at it as, finding a state of balance, because while on some level we've moved away from that submission or that relationship in harmony with the flows of nature, and we've gone straight for trying to exert our will upon the earth, and it gets us big cities, and it gets us to space, and it gets us all these things, gets us cell phones. I mean, we all use the technology, but really about finding now a rebalance where you recognize the trade-offs of every decision. And so not to be so altruistic that, I mean, just not realistic to buy this land and then just sit on it and not work it, not to do something, not to bring people, not to build homes. Like even a home, you could do it in the most mindful way. You're still disturbing the land. Right?
Yeah.
So
we can't live in, with loincloths and, in tents, I mean, you could, I guess. There's various levels, but there's always going to be some disruption. Like we've had some severe purists, I call them, want to join our community, and they just take offense at, hurting any type of life, pulling a weed out of the ground or killing a fly, and that's absurd, because nature is full of devastation, and so I think you do have to kill certain things for other things to thrive. It's just life. You can't be like ridiculous, and we've had some of that before too. So it's very interesting. But I think steward, you used the word steward of the land, is a great way to look at it. We're stewards of this land. People have become so disconnected from that because they live in cities. There's no land. It's concrete. They're renting an apartment. They're renting a high rise. There's no stewardship. It's just they own this box. And, and it's
I own a couple of those boxes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different mindset. So again, it starts with consciousness, but you'll attract those people who want that, and
Yeah. Well, and you have to maintain that level of consciousness. It's like it's not just something you get and you have and like then you can go back.
No.
You got to continuously, cultivate that consciousness. We're talking about walking in the land and the snakes. It's like that. When I first got here, all the cowboys were like, "Oh yeah, carry your pistol and just shoot them or grab a shovel and decapitate them or any number of ways you can kill the snakes."
Yeah.
And I tried it once and I didn't love it. And it's not that I'm a bleeding heart. It's more just that I recognized that I was going to enter into a relationship with these snakes where that would be it.
Yeah.
I would only be killing them. So I had to learn how to live with them in a different way. And then if I chose to kill one, then it was a conscious choice.
Yeah.
And I was deliberate about it. Because 99% of the time, that's not necessary.
Yeah.
If
you got a rattlesnake on the porch near your kids, you might kill it, but
right.
If it's out in the woods, let it be.
Yeah, and there's plenty of room for all of us, still, even though there's a lot of development happening.
Yeah.
So, you throw it in a bucket, take it somewhere else, and let it be.
So let's circle around to being a father now. How do you like that? How does that change you?
It is. It is. I don't know. I mean, what are the words? It's everything. It's everything I could have ever asked for. It's the greatest love and the greatest opportunity that I've ever been given, and it's always interesting and it's always a little bit challenging.
Yeah.
And I mean, if men like to be challenged and they like to, it's like that's it, and it's the kind of challenge that it's just like nature. Like you can't, it's not going to submit to your will.
You can't force.
It's this dance of love and curiosity and humbling yourself to, their level.
Mm.
And it's a relearning of what it's like not to necessarily have everything perfect all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much messiness to having kids, and
unpredictable.
It's like the idea of having a clean house. There's something so satisfying about everything being in its place, and then you have kids, and you're like, they have not become anal yet.
Yeah,
it's such a relief, And we have this table that my wife and I bought. We just fell in love with the table, and it like cost way too much money, and it was too designy, so it's not even that function. Like it's not a practical table, but we loved it. This is before we had kids, and it was like our first child. We like when people would come over, we hey, just make sure you don't. Oh, that's coaster. There's one of those things, and we took care of this table like it was everything to us. And then now we have kids. And I turn around, and my son just like hitting spoons on it and making little divots, and that's okay.
Yeah.
And I love those divots, and the table's the better for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that expresses a little bit what it's like for me to have kids, but I'm all in, and it's just such a joy.
Yeah. How has it been for you? I know from, just knowing your history and talking to you when I first met you, you grew up without a father. How is that? It's interesting because, my point of context of being a father is related to how I was fathered, by having a father who was a very good father, not a perfect man, but an excellent father and a beautiful man. And I think did a wonderful job raising me. I don't say that to toot my own horn, but to toot his. But, I was thinking like, well, it must be interesting not having that point of context to reference, like, and like You know, because there's even things where I say to myself, I'm going to raise my child like how my father raised me in this area. And then there's some areas like I don't want to raise my child like my father raised me in this area, you know, but you don't even have that. And so there's kind of just a creation story for yourself. And, you know, what is that like?
Yeah, I mean, I guess on some level there were male adult father figures.
Yeah.
So I can certainly emulate or more likely
Pull upon those.
avoid those lessons. And that was part of my personal growth journey because my rock bottom into self-discovery, into sort of a total, transformation of my spirit, my soul, and what I'm doing on the planet, in many ways was just growing the fuck up. It wasn't a big like spiritual awakening. It was just, it's time for you to grow up. And you never had a father figure to rear you and to, invite you into manhood.
Yeah.
And so for many years, call it 40 plus years, I was still operating in an immature adolescent mindset.
Yeah.
Me, what am I going to get? How's it going to, just like immediacy and throwing tantrums if I'm not getting what I want, and then, unfortunately there are a lot of women, a lot of people in the world who were willing to accommodate that bad behavior.
Yeah.
So when I grew up and I became a man, the audience can like scold me for the use of the words, but
yeah, screw them.
I growing up from adolescent boy to man, because these are real words that actually have real meaning.
Yep.
It was at that point when I was like, okay, I'm here now and I can be a father, and I know how to do what fathers do. It wasn't, I didn't need anybody to instruct me. And in many ways, I don't think you can instruct or tell a kid how to be, or to tell them how to be a good kid, or to teach them. It's not entirely intellectual, and perhaps it's probably nominally intellectual.
Yeah.
But it's mostly energetic. It's mostly embodiment. It's mostly demonstrative. Like you're demonstrating through your actions, through your patterns, through how you show up, and that imprints onto your children. And when I had that revelation, I realized, whoa, like there's nothing I can learn from my dad. I just have to start to become the man that I am becoming, and practice every day, get better at it, so that when I have children, I don't have to play catch up.
Yeah.
I don't have to then figure out how to be a dad, because I'm just dadding.
Yep.
I'm just, and it started with how I treat myself, like how I take care of myself, and then how I treat my wife, and how I make sure to honor her, and then that way my kids can see that in action. And then the biggest thing is presence. Like how do I devise my life so that I'm not always on a plane going somewhere doing something, but I'm there. And then let things unfold naturally.
Yeah. Yeah, in this culture there's been an attack, I think, and it's interesting that people want to make a debate about what it is to be a man, and manliness, and it's kind of quite silly actually, but that's the world we live in. I do quite a bit of work with men, and I have a men's group and a men's retreat, and it's interesting that we have to come together as men to reestablish what we already know. You know what I'm saying? But like that we've kind of forgotten through media.
It's been
rhetoric,
conditioned out of us.
Out of us.
Yeah. Well-meaning feminist.
But to me, it's not even about learning; it's about unlearning. Like men need to unlearn all of this kind of madness, and tap back into the primal kind of absolutes of it's okay to exhibit traditional qualities of manliness. It's okay to be a protector, to be a provider, to make decisions, to be decisive, to have your yes be your yes and your no be your no. And there's a culture now of kind of wishy-washiness. I call it the gray zone. You can even see it in the language and how people speak, how men speak. there's not a decisive yes and no. It's kind of maybe, sort of. They're afraid to make decisive statements. They're afraid to ruffle any feathers.
Yeah.
They're afraid to have a strong opinion. And it's really not good for society. It's actually the downfall in the long run of, society.
There are certain tools and they have certain usefulness.
Yeah.
You can use a flathead screwdriver as a chisel.
Yeah.
You can do that, but it's not going to work as well.
No.
Get a chisel. Use the chisel. Sharpen the chisel.
Yeah.
And the same way with masculinity and femininity, a masculine embodied like a man, an XY human, is built a certain way, has a certain cocktail of chemicals and hormones and body structure that makes him a tool for a certain purpose.
Yeah.
And God designed the world that way. Same with the woman. And it's not that we don't have both masculine and feminine within us.
No, yeah.
We have access to all of that on a spiritual plane, on a psychic plane. But the bodies we're given, we can utilize them in certain ways. This wasp really loves me. And so I'm trying to respond to the wasp like a man would. Calm, cool, collect, and slightly scared.
Yeah.
And so that's one thing that I realize is that in many ways I had been conditioned by a single mother who had a certain relationship to men in her life, who had become a feminist, discovered that, I'm not going to let men treat me a certain way, and I'm just going to take charge and, cultivate the masculinity of survival within me, which she had to do.
Yeah.
And then that imprint was passed down to me, where I did not, and not having a dad, so then I did not have the tool of my masculine, body cultivated.
Yeah.
And so one of the other reasons why I've decided to move here on the land and do this is to recondition my body into the natural state that it wants to be in.
Yeah.
And it's fucking great.
Yeah.
It's great.
Feels good, huh?
Feels great.
Yeah.
I mean, I was so impressed by you gentlemen. Come in here, and obviously we're doing all this podcasty stuff, which is abstract and video and, haircuts and quaffs.
Yeah.
But, I said, hey, we're building this wash shed, and, if you guys want to pitch in, that'd be awesome. And I know you guys have a baseline understanding of what that's like to do community work.
Yeah.
You guys jumped right in. You knew how to do the things. You have experience in it. Sometimes people come in and they volunteer, and you got to hold their hand the whole time, and they're more difficult than helpful.
Yeah.
And God bless them. I love that they're helping.
Yeah.
But we don't have that. Just it should be. I think we should teach kids in school their finances, and we should teach them basic primitive skills of survival and certain things of just how to be in their bodies in certain ways.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting thing to study culture today. It's very concerning if you think about 20 years from now, the trade skills, because young men, is it Z or X now? I don't know, 18-year-old kids or even millennials.
WTF.
Yeah, well, exactly. They don't want to get their hands dirty. They don't want to be plumbers or carpenters or farmers. They all want to be tech bros. They all want to be coders.
I used to be a city boy, and I'd be I didn't want to get my hands.
Yeah.
They're soiled. I got dirt in my fingers.
Yeah. But even with AI and robots, there's certain things that will never be replaced. And and men who are welding and building and gardening and creating, it's an aging industry. If you look at the trade skills, it's older men, and young men don't want to learn those things. Like I said, they want to make money online or on Instagram and YouTube. And I'm not saying there's something inherently wrong with wanting to make money that way, but there is something inherently wrong with every single man in culture leaning towards that way, young men, because it's going to be an issue when the current people who have these trade skills age out. Who's going to be doing the building and the working? And it's just the mindset of getting your hands, I feel good about myself when I learn something. And the beautiful thing about growing up in the community is I had mentorship. So I had a mentorship with an electrician. I had a mentorship with a carpenter. obviously a lot of farming and these different things. So I have a basic knowledge of all of these things where I can, fix this plumbing, I can build this, and it just feels good to know. And if there's something I don't know, then I want to learn it. I'm not an expert, on those things, but I don't need to be. I just need to have enough to, keep it going. Then if there's an expert needed, you call them in.
You said you don't think there's a problem, making money, as a stockbroker or something like that. I might say,
Well, I think there is a problem. Yeah.
well, yeah, we are, more and more cultivating disembodied humans who are not in their bodies. They're not. They don't even know how sick they are because they're, popping pills to numb or to mask, what's happening in the body. And so they're accepting more and more bad foods from industries that don't have their best interests at heart, or, they're drinking and numbing in unconscious ways. So I think there's something when you get into your body, and it was talking about the snake. The snake is like, be here now.
Yeah.
Be present. Be in your body. Be conscious. Don't get lost in your podcast. And we all do, right? Like it's not. But if you don't have that reference, you don't even know you're missing it.
Yeah.
And so just like people who don't exercise and they're atrophied and they don't even know why they're hunchback. I exercised last week, but I'm still hunchback. We're like, you haven't been stretching or you're doing all the things you need to do to get to a place of optimal health. The same is just with the basic skills that we're atrophied in those ways.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned plumbing not because I'm a great fucking plumber.
Mm-hmm.
I do electricity not because it's necessarily the smartest thing, because damn, I forgot to hit the breaker that one time, but it's because I have to meet my limitations and sharpen my skill sets just so I have a baseline awareness of what I am capable of. And so when I meet that expert electrician, I respect what he does, and I'm not afraid to pay him from my stockbroking, money. Because I remember back in the day when I used to live in New York, I used to hire people and I'd be like, always complaining, like, oh, it's so expensive. Like, why am I negotiating and like demeaning? Like, now I just pay it. I'm like, bro, thank you. Like, what you do is amazing.
Yeah.
And the way our culture and our capitalism is, we don't respect those tradespeople. We don't honor them with the money. We don't pay for the fucking vegetables. What they're worth. When someone does it organically. Or, takes the time to do regenerative agriculture or whatever. We don't, it's expensive. I'd rather get the cheap, whatever. So you do it just to expand your awareness so that you can respect the reality as it is. Not for any other reason.
Yeah, when a professional tradesman comes in and he, whether it's an electrician or a plumber or even a carpenter, and they fix something in 30 minutes, and then the person's like, why did I have to pay this extra? It only took you 30 minutes. Well, it took me 20 years to learn that so that I could do it in 30 minutes.
Right.
You're not paying for the 30 minutes. You're paying for decades of experience to do it in 30 minutes.
Right.
And it's interesting. It's I think it's quite sad actually that we don't have young men or women, but especially men in this modern age who are willing to learn those things. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens in 20 years, Like but there is kind of a resurgence in some ways of people coming back to the land, at least into farming. And, it's a young man. Typically, the average age of a farmer in America, I think, is like 55.
It's just insane.
And the farmers are aging out, and of course they're going to try and have robots do that too. But there's this industrial agriculture does not work for the land, and there needs to be hundreds of small organic farms and people connecting with the earth, and I really like that RFK's in office, that's really awesome. I've had the pleasure to meet him a few times and interview him and ask him questions, and he's all about it. He's all about the regenerative farming and having many, many small farms, contributing to a whole instead of these massive agro-industrialized massive operations. And I think, and there's been studies, it's not just some idyllic romantic idea. They have the data behind, if there's X amount of 5-acre organic farms in this area, it can feed this many people, and it can also give back to the earth. You can actually regenerate the earth even.
Well, you're also in close proximity to and deeper intimacy with the food you're eating. and it's coming from like right there, as opposed to in a pill. Like you could get all your micronutrients or whatever if you ordered a pill in a plastic bottle from Amazon.
Yeah.
But there's something else about seeing it, smelling it when you wake up. It's like the, oh, the smell of that mint that, is growing outside your windowsill or something. There's a, an intangible thing that happens when you're living in that relationship.
Yeah.
And it's also the microbiome, right? So you're creating healthy soil, and you're getting down there and you're rummaging in the dirt. You get a little of that dirt in your fingers, and maybe you bite your nail or something, and then now you're charging your microbiome with all of the all those microbes that are doing. Yeah, and you can't calculate.
Yeah.
The value is immeasurable.
Yeah.
It's yields beyond money. You can't. Yeah. Anyway, preaching to the choir. I know.
So in your evolution as a man, talked about leaving Hollywood and getting the farm and just working on yourself. What is?
What you talk? I didn't leave Hollywood. This is a
Yeah,
set.
there you go. We're on set, man. We create our own Hollywood.
I would love this to drop right now and just like, okay, cut. Let's try that again.
But in this evolution, what is something that you used to believe, or a philosophy on life, or something that was a strong belief that you no longer hold? I mean, there's probably so many, but like, is there something that surprises you? Like,
well, I'm gonna get a little bit somber, but
no, please, yeah.
I really believed that I was gonna live forever,
Mm.
or at least I just had no awareness of my mortality.
Yeah,
nothing overt. I've had to get right with death, or continuously have a conversation with that.
it's like aging.
The mortality. It's not aging. It's just
death, and yeah.
I mean, look, you blink, all right, we're already dead, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Technically, our life here is like
So
boom.
short, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just learning to recognize how precious our time is here, and how deeply sorrowful and tragic things can be, and sad, and let that create the meaning that is, well, it's here if we decide to bear witness. And of course, having kids helps to bring a little bit of that awareness. I'm actually making a film. I've never stopped making documentaries.
Yeah.
My latest documentary is on basically grief and redemption, and death and rebirth, and exploring those themes. And I've had a chance to talk to amazing humans in that field, and then people and thinkers and philosophers. And whereas before I was invincible, I really believed on some level that I could consume the world, that I could eat everything and have all the fun. That I could actually imbibe it or bring
Why
it
did you
into me.
believe that? Because just because your level of fame, like where you were at?
Well, it was just my wanton focus.
And there must have been, I'm just trying to understand the human psyche, because there must have been like a part of you that experienced an invincible feeling. Like, I can party, I can drink, I can do this, I can do that, and it's not affecting me. And you were like, you must have been in it enough to believe, like, I'm invincible.
Yeah, and I actually believed that I was a good person. I believed that I was uniquely qualified to, be an environmentalist, and that I was lucky to have, not lucky, but that I was supposed to have this position in this role so that I could bring, environmental values across the land, and, give speeches at, UN conferences or some bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
It was just an ego. It's ego. It's just like sense of self, and it was just bigger than everything in the universe. And it was just delusional, like absolutely delusional. I am a small, humble, human being that is so lucky to be here. So lucky.
So it sounds like you went through an ego death process,
Oh, well, yeah.
which we've kind of talked about, but like, break it down if you could,
Yeah.
if you could break down the ego death process a little bit, like, and you know, what was that like? I know we were talking before, you said you spent some time alone in a bungalow and
Yeah.
just solitude and abstaining from things, and
It's death. It's death. It's
yeah,
dying. It's painful like death. I'd say, maybe it's equal to the pain of death.
it's almost like an identity crisis too, because what you thought was your identity, it's just your ego, and everything is just, you have to completely let it die and bury it and be reborn into something else.
Yeah,
I mean, you're
and
still you, but
yeah.
you're, you know,
Well, you have a sense of the continuity of self, right? And whatever that illusion is, it's me.
but I guess Vince is probably dead then now, right? Or is he still there a little bit?
The Vince. I mean,
Vincent or whatever.
so as much as I've made all these lofty changes in my lifestyle and blah blah blah, family man and farming, etc. I went to Venice, the Venice Film Festival, and you can cut this in if you guys want. I went to the Venice Film Festival 2 weeks ago for a friend's premiere. He had a premiere at the festival. He's like, "Oh, you got to wear a tux." I was like, "Oh, yeah." I dusted off an old tux that I had, and we went, and I had like bronchitis, and I was jet lagged, and I was still like smelly from like the night before, like traveling from the farm life, smelling like goats or whatever. And I put my tux on, and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can do this. Like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Get onto the red carpet. Boom.
Came right back.
It was just like, I was like, yeah, Vince was, no, where have you been? Where have you been? He just came out. It was like chilling on the red carpet, looking at the cameras. So, I think it's important to not reject or repress the parts of you that you're, no longer indulging, but to properly integrate them and place them in a safe place so that when you need them, you can bring them out in the right moments.
It's great to be multidimensional.
Yeah.
You can be mowing the lawn and getting dirty and scooping up poop in the barn and then getting dressed
and getting
up.
fancy.
Getting fancy
yeah.
and, and getting intellectual and spiritual and, talking about philosophy and then go deal with other stuff again. That's the fun part.
We are doing a lot of this work so that we can have great parties.
So what would you like to be, fast forward to, we're talking about death. So fast forward to
I didn't mean to.
No, that's fine.
I mean, I did.
Not what I'm talking about, but that was one of my questions for you. Like, say, down the road, you're dying.
Oh, great.
And what is something that you want to be your legacy? What is something that you want to leave? Like if someone said, oh, Adrian, he left me with this. What is it that you want to leave upon the world and people?
Yeah, one thing that keeps coming up for me is, as much as I've been exploring the topic of death phobia and anxiety and our literacy around death and dying and not having sort of a proper initiation or a proper regular ritual to allow us to cultivate a familiarity and a dynamic relationship with that reality that comes to all of us and your father. And I don't know if you had that, if you mind me saying.
Yeah, no, please, yeah.
But I hope, I would have hoped that you, and I don't know, you tell me, that you had time to continuously visit that reality so that you could have those kind of conversations. We all wait till it's too late and then, oh, I wish I would have, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's because we're not bringing that into the kitchen table. We're not bringing that into a Friday afternoon, into a regular opportunity to meet that reality. And by the way, you get in the car, you could be you next week or tomorrow.
We should talk about death as much as we talk about life.
Yeah.
Because it's that real. Yeah. Like you said, we could die tomorrow, you could die tonight, Yeah, and I was blessed. I was blessed to have those conversations with my father and to not have that, absent gulf of this abyss of like, what is it,
Yeah.
And I have my own beliefs of where we go when we die. I think these are just vehicles, our souls, are just, these are just vessels. Yeah. And he's going on and we'll reunite and, the timeline of eternity. And we don't know everything, but what I belief and knowing are two different things. So we can all believe something, but it doesn't matter if I know it because I believe it. So I believe that I'm going to see him again. I believe that my body is just a vehicle housing my soul, and my soul goes on, his soul goes on, and he's gone from this plane of existence, but his spirit is still active. I think that his spirit will reveal itself to me and to others in different ways, in the quiet moments, in the sunset, you know, a whisper in time in the wind, and these different things. And that's the beauty if you're tapped into that, that plane of existence on the other side, that other dimension that I think is very real. And the mystics of, the great mystics for centuries have actually gotten to a point where the other dimension is more real than this dimension. So they're just in that dimension on the other side, and then it's hard for us to grasp that understanding when you read these writers. When I do, I see that it's more real to them than the chair I'm sitting in.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have that faith and that belief and that kind of esoteric wisdom of knowing where my father is and where he's going and will be reunited. But there's still a coming to terms with accepting he's gone from this reality.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a consciousness of eternity and you know that we will be reunited, that helps a lot, But yeah, death should be a conversation. I had a friend call me the other day who, was invited to my father's funeral, a celebration of life. And he just said, I can't come. I have all the utmost respect for you and your father, but he's like, I'm very uncomfortable around death. I can't be around the concept of death, and it's just so overwhelmingly uncomfortable for me that like I didn't even go to my grandfather's funeral, and I said, well, you're going to have to face this at some point because your mother's going to die, your father's going to die, someone in your life, and you're going to have
practice.
Yeah, it's like at least practice on someone who's not your own family member. You're not deeply in love with.
In the back row.
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing, and it occurred to me though because I've never had that relationship with death. I've always been comfortable with me. I was blessed to have a family where it was talked about, and as a young kid, my grandfather died, and it was talked about in my family, and people in my life died. I had a friend when I was 13 and she was 15, died of cancer, and that was mind blowing. I actually had a crush on her in high school, and she passed on of cancer, and I watched her die. I watched her wither away and die. And so that conversation with her family and my family and was very important, and it just kind of set a tone in my life, and I saw people die around me.
Yeah.
And so it became a familiar thing, which kind of I don't want to sound too sad that I'm familiar with death, but it became something I accepted, as a part of life. And I'm grateful for my belief of where the soul goes and what happens and, what we're doing on this earth down here, And, but I had compassion when this friend called me because I had never been in that. I've never talked to someone or had that mindset of being so paralyzed by like the concept of death that he couldn't even be around, the celebration of life. And I wasn't judgmental at all towards him. It just kind of set me back like, wow, like that's so different than how I think. It's good for me to take a step back and see people, and like you mentioned, like, wow, you're kind of in this place too, of just contemplating death and what it means. And it's a very different process for each person, but it should be talked about. I think different cultures and ancient wisdom in the tribes, it was a very common thing. People died all the time, whether it's in warfare, diseases, it was just a part of life. You get an infection in your tooth 200 years ago and you're dead, And it just kind of was like, and now I think as technology's advanced and supposedly civilization advanced, we think we can outdo death, but we can't. We are living longer. We're curing things. We're actually not living that much longer in some ways, but we are curing things that once killed us. And so it creates this consciousness of that we're kind of winning death, but we don't die from an infection,
Or you
like
might be
we would've.
existing longer, but you're not necessarily living, right? And people are, the transhumanists and the biohackers and all, it's like these are just expressions of our attempt at scaving away. Is that the word? Holding death at bay.
Yeah.
And not about being healthy. And I mean, I think I'm going to live a long, long life. That's what I believe.
Yeah.
But to be in relationship to death is to honor it. And I believe that by knowing it and letting it into your life in meaningful ways, it actually allows you to really relish that you are alive.
Yeah.
And that's that's better than the alternative of just coasting. And I was doing all the things, but I didn't feel alive. I was knocked out straight
Yeah.
up. Now I have this dynamic feeling. I'm like, really, things taste really good because I'm so happy to be here now. And I know that, my days are numbered. Still got, maybe 60 more years, but 70.
Yeah, why not? Why not? I don't have to give your age away, You look good, though.
I'm going to tell you because I'm proud of it. I'm 49.
Nice.
So I figure I'll live to 120.
There you go.
Give or take.
Cool. I love it. Yeah, it's
maybe just a little biohacking just to
I love when my friends
take the edge off.
I love when my friends turn 50 and I say, congratulations, you're half a century.
Yeah.
It makes them sound really old. Half a century old.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, I've lived, I lived probably 45 years of my life for other people or other things, or, not for myself.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm 5 years old. Like I've just started living for the first time. And now I have another 50, 60 years to do God's work.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
It's beautiful. Yeah, man. What a cool thing. Like, yeah, it's awesome. What a blessing that you got there, man. Congratulations. Because like I said, a lot of people don't get there. They stay stuck. They stay small. They stay in their comfort zones, and they live a life like Henry David Thoreau said, most men live a life of quiet desperation.
Mm-hmm.
And you're doing the work. So it's cool to see. It's cool to be here. I look forward to coming back again and visiting and seeing the changes as it evolves and helping out when I can, how I can. I got my hands full myself with everything we're doing.
Well, I have to come back and revisit.
You really should.
Now I see it with new eyes and
it's amazing. Yeah, we've done a lot of work since you were there last. I appreciate your time, man.
My wife invited you to dinner that you're gonna help cook.
Absolutely. Yeah.
If you guys are into it.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
Yeah. So, let's do that.
Thanks for talking, man, and thanks for taking the time, brother.
Cheers.
All right.
Subscribe, like, share, follow. You know the routine. Thanks for listening.